All right. Hello, my name is Devin Jones, and welcome to this edition of the Sparks Tribune Report. In this edition, we're going to be introducing a 10-part series on the Bill of Rights, and beginning with the First Amendment, we're going to be talking about the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, the freedom of peaceable assembly, the freedom of press, etc. And we're going to be opening a little bit of a dialogue as far as what that means in the 21st century. In the First Amendment states, and I quote, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, nor prohibiting the free exercise thereof, nor prohibiting the freedom of speech, nor of the press, or prohibiting the right of the people to peaceably to assemble, or to petition the government for a redress of grievances." And
I have no problem with those, personally.
But at any rate,
some people do.
The freedom, the First Amendment particularly, and cheers.
Cheers. Like my cup?
But the First Amendment has come under fire from both the right and the left, unfortunately. And due to unfortunate circumstances, it behooves us to discuss the importance of the issue, to discuss what it means in 21st century America with regard to a free and fair democracy, how important it is, how paramount it is as a free and fair democracy that we have the First Amendment. No, left, right aside. And I'd kind of like to take it clause by clause, beginning with the first clause of this First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion.
Mm-hmm.
And the ideological right likes to co-opt that first clause, the freedom of religion.
Sure, they freedom of their religion.
Right. For me, but not for thee.
Correct. Yeah. And no, it's been that way for centuries.
Right. Well, particularly in today's,
Right. But no, it's been that way for centuries. You ever read some of the stuff the Puritans wrote?
The Puritans. The Puritans had...
Well, the Pilgrims, if you will.
Well, no. I mean, no protest.
Cotton Mather, that sort of thing.
Right. No protest with regard to your terminology. I'm just curious. I did not know that the Puritans had a particular say-so on this matter.
Oh, being possibly the second or third settlers, not counting the Spanish, which we should count, but they had a huge amount of influence, and if you go up to the north especially, or some parts of the south, they will be influential. There was a guy named Cotton Mather who, I can't think of the name of his sermon, but it's a very famous sermon where he basically said, you're predestined to go to hell. You have no choice. If you're going to heaven, you're going to heaven. If you're going to hell, you're going to hell.
Okay.
It's irritating at best, because that means there are no good people or bad people. There are just, people who are going one place or another.
In what Christian terminology might deem a Calvinist ideological framework.
Yeah.
Right. And by the way, I did not introduce you.
Oh.
In the video.
I am Mike Lambert. Nice to meet you.
But at any rate, so the First Amendment, the first clause of the First Amendment states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. Congress shall make no... In other words, this is on Congress, kind of, or particularly. And also, if this goes into other clauses in the First Amendment, because we're talking about congressional action particularly. And so this kind of opens up a proverbial can of worms with regard to the other clauses as far as, well, we're talking specifically of congressional action.
Yeah.
And a whole can of worms is opened up with regard to all of the other clauses because it opens up with Congress is not making a law respecting, etc. You know what I mean?
No, I
So
know what you're saying. Basically,
with regard,
they plan to do that all the time. However, at least there are some protections.
right? But that is what I wanted to get into, and and the fact that it opens up with specifically congressional action is kind of why it needs to be discussed in a 21st century framework, and the way that we look at it today is because they're basically it's easy to skirt around the First Amendment rights because it's not necessarily in a 21st century framework. A lot of times it's not specifically Congress taking these actions.
You're talking about the Supreme Court.
No, I'm speaking of, for example, infringements on whether it be religious liberty, infringements on free speech, on social media, and we're talking specifically about congressional action when we're talking about the First Amendment.
But I think a lot of rights have been taken away too by the courts.
Right, and yeah, like George Carlin infamously said. George Carlin stated, and if you watch the news even badly, you'll notice the list of our rights get shorter and shorter and shorter. Yeah. George Carlin was a genius.
Oh,
absolutely.
By the way.
But
I'm sorry, I should play conservative. No, he was an asshole. I hate him. No.
Well, no need to play any specific role.
Hey, I almost dated Colin Powell's daughter.
Oh, yeah.
We were in acting class together at William & Mary.
But in stating that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, what the First Amendment is essentially saying is that there is no established religion.
Of course, yeah.
That those same people who bellow and bark about this amendment.
I'm sorry, I'll go back to my acting. We're a Christian country.
Right. Well, we'll see.
We're a Christian country.
That's kind of what I was going toward, is the fact that so many people say, "Oh, this is a Christian nation," and they are inherently incorrect per the wording of the First Amendment.
Well, Jefferson was deist.
Right. No, you're onto something there, because many of the founding fathers were not Christians.
No.
They were either atheists or deists, or, there were many founding fathers that were none of the above.
There were Jews who worked with the Confederacy.
Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah.
But the same people who are barking the loudest about freedom of religion are not in realization of the fact that their own founding fathers that they tend to worship so loudly,
they know
we're not. Yeah, they don't know anything about them.
Yeah.
They were not Christians. They were deists or atheists.
Yeah.
The same people that they're worshiping, and the same people that they're worshiping subsequently had opposite intentions of their own ideological framework as far as they consider this to be a Christian nation. Oh, nay. The opposite actually is true, and the framers of the Constitution were actually escaping. The Church of England, the Anglican Church of England. They were escaping religious persecution.
Episcopalians here.
Right. Well, Lutheran specifically, many Lutherans.
Oh, I know many Lutherans. Yeah.
But nonetheless, they were escaping
all the theses Martin Luther had.
Right, all 99. But they were escaping religious persecution. As far as if we're talking about
in some sense, yeah.
That certain group.
Except they're quite happy to persecute anybody else who disagreed with them.
Right, and
Martin Luther was a brilliant genius and an asshole, as many geniuses are.
But what I wanted to say specifically,
Martin Luther. We're talking 1517.
Well, Martin Luther King Jr. was whose namesake was Martin Luther. Right.
Although I understand Martin Luther King Jr. was also apparently a bit of an asshole, but I didn't meet the man, so I don't know.
But no, I do believe on this particular channel you are speaking to a rather informed audience, so I don't think you offended anybody. I think most of the people watching this particular channel are at least that familiar with history.
Okay.
So,
hello.
Yeah. Hello, thou informed one. But anyway, but specifically when we're talking about religious liberty, that it is co-opted by those on the ideological evangelical Christian right, those who like to claim religious liberties and only use it, by the way, when it benefits them or when it gives them rights,
Of course.
albeit it is co-opted to harm the rights of others that they deem unworthy or that they just subsequently fucking hate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whether it be gay rights, whether it be Muslims, by the way, who, by the way, have the same religious rights.
Or black folk, or
right, but specifically,
anybody else who
I didn't mean to interrupt.
Anybody else who just disagrees.
Right, but specifically, like while we're talking about religious liberty, Muslims are a religious group that has the same rights.
Correct. Yes.
As a religious group, they have the right to gather and worship and spread their message in the same way.
Except you'll find somebody who's ready to walk in with a gun.
Well, the First Amendment. Hold on. While we're talking about walking in with guns, that same First Amendment also guarantees the right to peacefully make your point or peacefully protest. So while we're talking about, it doesn't matter whether you're a Christian with a gun or a Muslim with a gun. If you're walking in with a gun, you're not covered. Those rights are not covered under the First Amendment because the rights to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That caveat, peacefully, is incorporated automatically in the First Amendment. So,
well, again, we can also go to the big fat concept of people who will drive a truck up to a federal building in 1995, was it? I can't remember. Loaded with nitrate.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that particular story.
What's his bloody name? It'll come to me in a minute. The domestic terrorist who blew up the federal building in Oklahoma.
Oh, the Oklahoma City bombing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But basically, the First Amendment, the first clause of the First Amendment guarantees your right to exercise your religion and guarantees the right of every religion peaceably to exercise their religion. Be it Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, etc. Your right to exercise your religion is guaranteed.
As long as your exercise of religion.
Yeah, some people need to be exercised.
Yeah, quite possibly. As long as that, as we've said before, your right to believe what you want stops at the end of my face. If you want to hit me, that's great, but you better stop here.
But that
some people believe, and I will argue this, that if you believe that your religion tells you to kill people, then your freedom of religion ends.
Well, see, also, okay, now that brings up another point, because your freedoms, no matter which amendment we're talking about, no matter which of your rights we're talking about, your freedoms end where someone else's begin.
Yeah, exactly.
I have every right to practice my religion. I can be whatever religion I claim, no matter how crazy that religion is. But if my religion tells me that I have the right to walk up to you and cut your dick off, there's problems.
There are
because you have a right to your dick. In other words, my rights stop where yours begin.
Yeah, I enjoy masturbating. I'm serious.
But that's
joke,
also,
folks. I'm getting too old for this.
No, I do believe you're speaking to a rather thick-skinned audience, but your rights stop where someone else's rights begin. And that's what the ideological right, the evangelical Christian group needs to get through their head, is that they have those rights. They have every right that, and no one is trying to encroach on the rights of the evangelical Christian church, nor should we. They have the right to gather. Yeah. They have every right to gather in their prayer circles. They have every right to preach on the street corner, by the way.
Well, sometimes I'll
And
join it.
I'll disagree with some people on that, by the way, because some people would disagree with me. And I'm going to argue that they do have every right to preach on the street corner and talk about their faith, their evangelical faith, and do so on the street corner if they so choose, because that coincides with their right of free speech.
Like I said, Voltaire.
Well, anyway.
You know that line.
No, I don't.
I may not like what you say, but I will defend to my life the right for you to say it.
Okay, I've heard a version of that.
Yeah,
I may not like what you have to say, but will defend to the death your right to say it. That is a beautiful insertion into this particular discussion, because that goes right into not this clause of the First Amendment, but the next clause when we start talking about free speech, because that's extremely important. When we're talking about, the ugliness of certain speech that we don't like, and when we're talking about censorship, like Donald Trump being banned from Twitter. Yes, okay, he's an ugly guy. He's an asshole. He says stupid things. But so I may not like what he has to say, but will defend to the death his right to say it.
Until incitement to violence.
He did not specifically incite anyone to violence. He never specifically told anyone to go and commit violence, though.
He yelled fire in a
that was Giuliani.
Theater.
That was Giuliani. Giuliani said this is trial by combat. Donald Trump never specifically told anybody to commit violence.
I'd have to watch that again.
Right.
I was working very busily that last week, so
a lot of this is media sensationalism.
Well, that is true too.
A lot of it is media sensationalism, and it's the left, the nominal left, not the real left, but the nominal left, jumping on him. And what that does is it opens up an ugly window and sets a horrible, dangerous precedent toward the ability of tech oligarchs to censor people, which has been done, by the way, on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
A major socialist.
It's happened many times before.
It has, and this has set a precedent. And it's no longer just a speculation or a slippery slope argument, because this has been done. And I guess we just automatically moved into the next clause of the First Amendment. But the
segue.
Right. But Facebook has banned a major socialist left political party.
Mm-hmm.
They banned that political party. What opened the door to that, by the way? Perhaps, no, I said, what opened the door? No, they banned a socialist political party from Facebook.
Recently? Like today?
Yes, very recently.
So after Trump?
No, yes, after Trump's banning.
Okay.
Very recently.
So now they're trying to be centrist.
Right, exactly, and that's what it started off. Okay, we're going to ban. We're going to ban the fringes.
We're not doing everybody. Just anybody. We're doing everybody.
Right,
is what you're saying.
Kind of, yes, but hold on, because it started off. Okay, we're going to ban Trump. Now we're going to branch off, and we're not just going to ban Trump. We're going to ban all of the people that we consider to be on the fringe right.
Mm-hmm.
Based on the fact that we're going to deem what they're saying as being false or spreading conspiracy theories, and then from there, like what you were just saying, in the name of being balanced, now they're going to go after what they consider. Yeah, I know you're going with the fair and balanced, the Fox News thing. Mm-hmm. Right. Clever. Anyway,
I thought so.
Anyway. But they took that and they said, okay, well, if we're going to ban what we consider to be the fringe right, now we have to go after the fringe left. And they started banning leftist Facebook pages. Now there's socialist. Now the Socialist Party's Facebook page is banned. Now again, this goes back to, this is a huge "I told you so" moment for those who were trying to warn about censorship. Those on the left who first cried about it when it first happened, when Donald Trump was first banned, and people on the left said, hey, this is a bad idea. Don't ban Donald Trump. People on the left like like Jimmy Dore, like Lee Camp, like a whole bunch of people saying, "Hey, this is a bad idea. You're setting an ugly precedent." And then they started banning a whole bunch of people on the right. Now, guess what? Now they're starting to ban people on the ideological left that they consider to be just as extreme. So we're talking about that same ugly precedent that was set. But while we're talking about censorship, all of a sudden, I should continue with the First Amendment.
One thing I want to bring up is
Go ahead.
We talked about this last night. There's an old saying from Nazi Germany where when they came for the Jews, I didn't say anything. When they came for the Catholics, I didn't say anything. When they came for me, I would just love to say anything.
Right. And I've heard multiple versions of that.
Yeah.
One version.
It's better in the little German.
Right. Well, one version of that I like a lot says that they came for the Mexicans, and I didn't say anything because I wasn't Mexican, and they came for black rights, and I didn't say anything because I wasn't black, and they came for the journalists, and I didn't say anything because I wasn't a journalist, but then when they came for me, no one was left to speak for me.
Correct. Yeah.
Hinging on the importance of journalists in our society is what that speaks to.
Or just speaking out.
Or anybody who dares to speak out when something goes awry in our political sphere.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about censorship, though, I should continue with the next clause of the First Amendment, because the next clause, and
I keep winking at the camera. I'm sorry. Looking at myself.
No one's here to flirt with, okay? But Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, nor prohibiting the free exercise thereof, nor abridging the freedom of speech, nor of the press. And I'll stop there for a second, because that's what we've been talking about, is the freedom of speech and of the press. And specifically in this moment where we're talking about the freedom of speech, the freedom of the press should be incorporated into that discussion. Because there's a certain man by the name of Julian Assange who is sitting in a prison right now. He's sitting in a prison in isolation because he dared to hit publish on true information. And I think that is a sickening and a sad awakening for the American public.
They wouldn't care.
No.
Trust me,
there are many who do care. And, again, I'm not sure you're familiar with the audience we're speaking to, but there's a lot of people that would be watching this particular YouTube channel that would care about that. So we are speaking to a particular audience that does care.
That's good.
But it is ridiculously paramount that we care about that particular issue, and there are reasons for that. We're talking about someone who is a journalist, first of all, who had the gall, the nerve to hit publish on verifiably true information, and whose vengeance is being sought on by the powers that be.
Of course.
Do I need to say any more?
There's an ideological mindset that you get, especially working with the government. I worked at the Pentagon for years. And we had secret rooms where you had to go type stuff in. We had various computers that couldn't be used by certain people. There were basically all sorts of rules and regulations as to how you handled sensitive information.
Mm-hmm.
However, Assange was not ascribed to those rules. He did not sign an oath. He did not.
He's only a publisher.
Yeah.
He's just a journalist.
Yeah.
The person who had access.
Manning.
Yeah. Correct again.
That person.
Correct again.
That person probably by law is eligible for imprisonment and has been. And was subsequently tortured.
Yes, by the Obama administration for 7 years.
Yeah,
Chelsea Manning was tortured for 7 years.
Cruel and unusual punishment.
Okay, and there we talk about the Eighth Amendment, which we will get to in
In about
session number
19
8.
days.
Well, yeah.
Whatever.
Well,
No, that is true.
but yeah, that speaks to not only cruel and unusual punishment, but it also speaks to a legal debacle when we're talking about, did Chelsea Manning have the right to leak that information?
No, because he at the time, signed an oath saying that he would protect everything.
Then okay,
Because
well that
that's
should
in the
be
military.
hashed out.
You would know that.
Right, and that should be hashed out in that particular video.
We will do that.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll hash that
But
out.
you have to sign these things.
Right, there are non-disclosure agreements, etc.
Non-disclosure,
I'm familiar with
oaths.
NDAs.
I remember having to sign something that says, "Have you ever?"
There are long form and short.
Oh yeah.
There are long form and short form.
Because I carried a secret clearance.
Disclosure agreements. Yeah. I'm familiar, and we'll disclose that at the time. But I will give a spoiler alert. I will give a spoiler alert that I think Chelsea Manning was in her right.
As a respectable citizen?
As a citizen.
To disclose what she saw?
Yes. Based not on what she had a right
morality to. Or
public interest.
Public interest, possibly.
In the good of the American people, she saw something that was not going to be disclosed should she not disclose it. And so in public in the eye of the public good, that she disclosed something that she technically should not have disclosed. At the behest of the American people and for the good of the American people, disclosed something that was against the rules for her to disclose and decided to do so anyway because she was doing something for the general welfare, for the ultimate good.
I do not. I do not disagree.
There's, and again we can discuss that when we're talking about the Eighth Amendment.
Yeah.
But that is my
Snowden too at that point.
Yeah, absolutely, and Snowden does play a role in that same discussion. But it's not a matter of like, yes, did these people disobey the rules? Did they just right? Mm-hmm. Did they disobey the rules? Absolutely, they disobeyed the rules.
Should they not have been punished in the way they were?
Hold on. Did they have a reason to disobey the rules? Absolutely.
I'd have to.
You know what I mean?
And this plays. It's been a while since I've watched anything about that.
But that's
what was released.
But that goes back to the heart of the matter when we're talking about Julian Assange, Edward Snowden, Chelsea Manning, etc., Seth Rich.
Well, people in power don't want you to know what's going on. Like Carlin said, there's a big giant club, and you ain't part of it.
When we're speaking about George Carlin, something else George Carlin said was. Something else George Carlin said was they want you just smart enough to operate the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to accept the big red, white, and blue dick being shoved up your ass.
Pretty much, yeah.
And he was right.
He was absolutely right.
But what they did, was it illegal?
Why do you think
was it illegal? If I can just say this, was it illegal? Yes. Was it necessary? Yes.
Probably, yes.
So that's why I take their side in this matter and say that what they did, there is an exception to the rule, and what they did was in the interest of the public good and furthering what we call journalism, because journalists are leakers. That's what journalists are. Any good journalist, not a cheap, sensational CNN, MSNBC, Fox News journalist, but a true journalist whistleblows every time they write. Mm-hmm. A true journalist does that. And so that's my view on leakers, is that there are automatic exceptions to the rule when something is published in the name of the common good or public interest.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand.
You know what I mean?
I understand. I concur. Sorry, lost my train of thought.
But at any rate, so by the way, when we're talking about the First Amendment and that particular clause of the First Amendment, that is the only trade mentioned in the Bill of Rights, the press. The only trade mentioned that are given specific rights in the Constitution is the press.
Technically,
the right of the press.
Depending on how you look at religion, that's a trade too.
Oh yes, we're talking about buffoons who want to make money off of people's idiocy, but I'm talking about a literal trade.
Okay. Gotcha.
The only trade mentioned in the Bill of Rights that are granted the right to exist is the press. And there's a reason for that. The right of the free press is literally and very specifically granted the right to exist and the right to exist freely in the Bill of Rights. I personally think that's beautiful.
Except under the Trump
'Cause there's-
administration.
Right. Well, he attacked the press left and right as he saw fit, left and right.
Free speech.
Literally. Right. And called everything fake news that he hated.
Of course.
But
He's a narcissistic bastard.
I think that is beautiful, though. That the Constitution specifically grants freedoms to that industry, to that particular, to the press. I personally think that's beautiful. Because there's a reason that democracy needs a free press. We call it the fourth estate. And they are there to hold powerful people accountable for their actions.
Unless it's just entertainment.
And they often do that. But
you know what fIrSt was?
fIrSt? Which fIrSt?
What's his name? The guy, oh shoot. Whatever the damn movie was called. Basically the guy who was built on from the 1890s. William Randolph Hearst. William Randolph Hearst, sorry.
But
he was the one who created what was called yellow journalism. Partially because they printed it on yellow paper.
Okay.
But Citizen Kane is the movie he's based on.
Okay.
Rosebud.
But anyway, moving on from that though, but and the right of free speech does play in specifically to the right of the free press because they do tie in very directly to each other.
Yeah, that's
when we're talking about the right of the free press.
Well, that's free speech.
Yes, absolutely.
Any stupid thing you want.
Right. No. Even and before we move on, because that's another very damn good point. Because whether we're talking about WikiLeaks, publishing something that's damn true and damning to those in power, or whether we're talking about somebody as crazy as Breitbart News on the far right, publishing some crazy right-wing conspiracy theory, they have a right to. They have a right to. We'll piss some people off here, but they have a right to, because if you go after them and try to shut them up and say they don't have a right to publish that, then you only open a window to have your rights shut up too. Because when you tell Breitbart News to shut up, all you're doing is you're opening a window for Facebook, Twitter, whatever that social media is is the window to share those articles through. You're opening up the window for them to shut your articles up too. So everybody has a right to free speech, even if it's Breitbart News. Even if it's some crazy right-wing conspiracy theorist.
Read the goddamn stuff.
No, I don't read it either. But they have every right, and we need to stand up for them. As crazy as that sounds, you can hate me for that if you want to, but I will stand up. And I did.
Here's where your free speech ends.
But no, when Alex Jones, I don't know if you know who Alex Jones is. When Alex Jones was banned from social media platforms, I wrote an article defending him. To the ire of progressives. They hated my guts for defending him. Oh, it was funny, all right. No, they hated my guts for publishing that article. And I didn't care. And I still don't care. And I will still defend what I said. Because when you defend silencing somebody, you open up an ugly door and set an ugly precedent. But see, I don't have to work so hard now because what I said is coming true. They're silencing leftist platforms. So what I said back then, when I got so much ire and hate for what I said, now it's coming true.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't have to work so hard now because they see that what I said back then was true. Now they're silencing leftists websites and Facebook pages. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know what you mean. And like I said, I think I've maybe said this the other night to you. Those who don't remember history are doomed to repeat it because
Hmm.
that's happened. Those who remember history are doomed to live through it.
But at any rate, so that is that clause. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, nor prohibiting the free exercise thereof, nor prohibiting the freedom of speech, nor of the press, nor the right of the people peaceably to assemble. That's the next clause of the First Amendment. The right of the people peaceably to assemble, and subsequently to petition the government for a redress of grievances. We're specifically talking about peaceful protest and the like. So here we come across this matter of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, by the way, before I say anything about them smashing windows or burning things down, I do want to say I do stand with Black Lives Matter as a group and as a cause. Well, before I call them buffoons for smashing shit, which I will in just a moment, I will also, before that, I need to make it clear that I stand with them as a movement.
There is also there are now also a large number of MAGA people who peaceably assembled. However,
and they have every right to, as long as they're doing so peacefully, not when they're breaking through the Capitol fucking building.
Putting your feet up on a desk.
No, what they did on January the 6th is not a peaceable protest. That's not a peaceful assembly petitioning the government for a redress of grievances. That's not what that was.
No, that was an insurrection.
That was an insurrection, and it needs to be punished, and they need to be held accountable. Mm-hmm. And so do, by the way, I'll need to say this on camera. Lest I'd be accused of idiocy, that the lawmakers that enabled that need to be held accountable likewise.
That would be nice. Not going to happen.
It's not going to be. It's not going to happen. You're absolutely right. But Josh Hawley, specifically, the Republican congressman that runs his big mouth and was saying that what they did was justified.
Oh, and he'll still wind up getting his full medical benefits for the rest of life and Secret Service protection.
And reelected, probably.
Probably, yeah.
Probably reelected, too.
Yeah.
He will be. Same with Ted Cruz. Will probably be reelected. And I have a specific thorn in the side for Ted Cruz because he kind of pisses me off.
He pisses everybody off except for the people who like him.
Right. But at any rate, specifically speaking of peaceable protest, while they got damn near got away with what they did, do you know people who peaceably, and I do mean literally, peaceably protested having an oil pipeline drilled through their drinking water?
Mm-hmm.
Had rubber bullets shot at them?
Mm-hmm. I know, yeah.
Were treated like bioterrorists, in fact called bioterrorists by the press.
Mm-hmm. Well, sure.
I mean, just do a Google search. Do a Google search for the Standing Rock protest.
I've done. It appeals to people who like to hear that kind of stuff. That's kind of a rhetorical nonsense.
That is fucking sickening. That is sickening. Mm-hmm. That they were called bioterrorists, and all they wanted was clean drinking water.
Mm-hmm.
And they were peaceable. They didn't loot anything. They didn't rob anything. They didn't hurt anybody. But people that broke into the Capitol building,
mm-hmm.
and
they're patriots.
And right, exactly.
They're fucking
patriots. And even though they wanted to literally hang the vice president,
mm-hmm.
they're going to be viewed as heroes and patriots and wonderful fucking people.
Oh, sure, I'm sure.
Yes, I said fucking.
They're probably fuck them. They're probably getting toasted in bars and restaurants throughout the fucking country.
But see, this is my problem with the inconsistency,
of course,
of American political discourse. Is because those on the left, when we peaceably protest, like when we have a Black Lives Matter protest, or whether we're protesting an oil pipeline being drilled through somebody's drinking water, and it's a peaceable protest, we're labeled as terrorists automatically. And when the right goes absolutely fucking nuts,
oh yeah,
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. They're patriots. They're patriots.
Well, let's put it this way.
This is a fucking problem. This is a
It's
problem.
a huge problem. I keep saying Why do I keep saying
No pressure,
No.
Mr.
No, my friend, years ago, I had a friend, Neil Tyler, who was from the Midwest. It's
Hold
time
on.
for reboot.
It is.
I'm sure we'll edit this out.
Not at all.
It's got to be cleaned out, though.
Yeah, that's old.
No, I just meant the bulb. Do whatever now. That's easy enough to clean
shit. Now I need to open this somehow.
I assume we're going to edit this part out.
Probably not.
No?
At any rate,
There's the blow
So,
thing.
the point that I wanted to make.
Hang on a sec. I'll fix it for you. You make your point.
Yeah, I'll make my point.
It's get a little warm in here anyway.
You want to open that?
Might open too.
Thank you. But while he's doing that, my basic point, the essence of this last clause of the First Amendment, is that your right to peaceably assemble and to petition the government, thank you, for a redress of grievances, stops at that word, peaceably. So while I'm going to stand here and justify your Black Lives Matter protest, justify your left-wing protests, and justify those assemblies of people gathering for their rights like they very well should, I'm also going to stop my support at the word peaceably. When you start taking a fucking bat, where are you going? Are you hiding now?
No, where'd the other deer go?
Well, you had your beverage here in the pink cup.
Oh, you've already had one. Okay.
At any rate,
I'm back.
the support for protest needs to stop at this word peaceably. I've already said, like, while you were gone,
I already lost
that
my
I
train of thought.
support. No, I was just saying while you were gone that I'll support these left-wing protests. However, it stops at that word peaceably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That when we start destroying shit, you have lost my support automatically.
Mm-hmm.
You are no longer protected by the First Amendment because the First Amendment's protections stop at that word peaceably. The right to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances, etc., etc. So the word peaceably is the inherent caveat incorporated into that First Amendment is that word peaceably.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these people that have gone apeshit have automatically bought themselves out of that caveat when they start destroying.
Oh, no, they became criminals.
Right, exactly. There's somebody, by the way.
There are called things, called laws.
There's somebody on Twitter. They follow my account, by the way. There's somebody that follows my Twitter account. You, if you're watching. No, somebody on Twitter. Their account is called Loot Every Walmart. The fuck?
I have no problem with that. Who gives it to him about the problems at Tesco?
Oh,
Profits at Tesco.
I do. Now,
hang on a sec. I got to do one more thing.
I have a problem with these people that want to do something in a criminal way.
I'm listening. I'm just.
At any rate, criminal activity is not justified, not protected under the First Amendment in any way, shape, or form. And I'll quote the First Amendment one more time, and then we can part ways. But the First Amendment states, and I quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, nor prohibiting the free exercise thereof, nor prohibiting the right of the people peaceably to assemble or to petition the government for a redress of grievances, etc. Did you want to say anything?
Nice to meet you, folks. Sorry, I had to change shirts. He's got a space heater running in here. It's like 95 degrees in the room. But we're supposed to get snow, so it's a good thing.
Like the classic rock song says, I'm hot-blooded. And y'all have a wonderful evening. And again, you can find me on Twitter at the user handle provided in the description box below, along with being able to find the Sparks Tribune's website, again, at the URL provided in the description box below. And have a wonderful evening.